And then obviously, he gets caught on tape. They kind of carry a grudge about it.
The Undertaker has revealed that Hulk Hogan took advantage of the wives of his colleagues during his WWE career, and honestly, it is not shocking. Hogan was even caught on tape with the wife of his best friend. These revelations from The Undertaker are shocking, and we have the full story. When people think of Hulk Hogan, they imagine the mustached superstar flexing in front of millions of fans, representing the American dream. But behind the yellow bandana and the larger-than-life image was a man whose personal choices would damage not only his own family, but also the legacy he had spent decades creating. In 2007, the Hogan family was at the peak of fame with their reality show Hogan Knows Best. To the world, they looked like the perfect American family, with a wrestling legend, his loyal wife Linda, and their two children, Brooke and Nick, living their best lives on camera. But under this carefully created image, scandals were growing that would soon destroy everything they had built together. At the center of the first shocking betrayal was a young woman named Christiane Plant, who had become one of Brooke Hogan's closest friends. She spent countless hours in the Hogan household, sharing meals, conversations, and personal moments that built a real friendship. Brooke, who was focused on starting her music career at the time, leaned on Plant for emotional support and companionship in a world where true friends were rare because of her famous last name. What happened next would shake the Hogan family to its core. Linda Hogan came forward and publicly accused her husband of having an affair with Christiane Plant, an accusation that would become the final breaking point in their 24-year marriage.
Look at me. There was zero eye contact. Like, he just couldn't face me anymore.
The confirmation of the affair came from an unexpected source, Christiane Plant herself. In a shocking admission to the National Enquirer in 2008, she admitted the relationship, but tried to give context that might make it seem less wrong. Plant explained that her relationship with Terry began when he and Linda already knew their marriage was ending, saying Linda had left him even though no official papers had been filed. For Brooke Hogan, this revelation was devastating. The young woman who had trusted her father and her best friend suddenly found herself trapped in a scandal that would shape her connection with both of them for years. The emotional impact on Brooke was clear in a heartbreaking MySpace post that was later deleted but captured by media outlets at the time. In her own words, she wrote about how, when your best friend and a family member you have loved since birth betray you together, you may try to find forgiveness, but it cuts too deep. Linda Hogan's publicist confirmed to E! News that the affair with Plant was the final straw that led her to file for divorce in 2007. For Linda, it was not only about her husband's unfaithfulness, but also about the breaking of their family bond, the betrayal of their daughter's trust, and the destruction of relationships that had taken years to build.
To this day are still reeling that they can't get their feet back on planet Earth, and I can't get my life back on track either. I don't know, what am I supposed to do, start over now? I'm 57, and I don't know where I fit in this world anymore. It's just like I got plucked out of my life. I was so happy in that I thought I was happy in, and things just started disintegrating, and it's just really hard to rebuild, but he has no sympathy about that. All he can do is think about himself.
Christiane Plant herself seemed to understand how serious the situation was, admitting regret for what happened and saying she had apologized to Brooke for her actions, though she knew she had lost a wonderful friend. But if the Plant affair was painful, what followed was nothing less than a complete disaster that exposed Hogan's personal life in the most humiliating and public way possible. In 2006, a scandal so shocking and bizarre came to light that it made the Plant affair look minor in comparison. At the center of this next chapter in Hogan's infidelity was Todd Allen Clem, better known as Bubba the Love Sponge, a controversial radio personality who built his career by pushing boundaries and shocking audiences. Bubba was not just a professional acquaintance of Hogan's, he claimed to be his closest friend, with their bond growing over years of support and shared experiences in the entertainment world. But, as Bubba would later reveal in shocking detail, their friendship included arrangements that most people would struggle to even understand. Speaking on his own show years later, Bubba made a confession that exposed the disturbing truth about the twisted dynamics of their relationship.
My best friend and my wife is not that big a deal to me. And so...
And you guys were married? You guys were together?
Yeah, we were married, and so we're driving home from the dollhouse, and my wife calls me, and Hogan's down. He's going through the worst divorce ever. And I just told her, I said, hey, Heather, have a little sexy outfit on and take care of my boy when we get.
This revelation exposed the strange and troubling events of 2006, a time when Hulk Hogan was at one of the lowest points of his life. He was secretly recorded having sex with Heather Clem, reportedly without his knowledge or consent, in what many believe was a setup arranged by Bubba himself. The details of this incident suggest manipulation and exploitation that went far beyond a normal extramarital affair. The most disturbing part of the entire situation was Bubba's own admission about Hogan's fragile mental state during that time.
Friend Hulk Hogan lived with me at his lowest point of his life in 2007. He was suicidal. I had to take a gun away from him at one time. He was going to kill himself.
This context revealed an even darker side to what happened. Hogan was reportedly battling suicidal thoughts while living with a friend who claimed to care for him. Yet that same friend was creating situations that pushed him deeper into emotional collapse and a failing marriage. According to Hogan's later testimony on the Howard Stern show, Bubba had given his approval, and Heather had been relentless in pursuing him during a low point in his marriage to Linda. Hogan admitted that he was depressed, gave in to temptation, and described it as a bad decision at the lowest point in his life. Bubba's home surveillance system captured everything, turning what should have been a private moment into a permanent record. Bubba allegedly burned the footage onto a DVD and kept it, claiming it was never meant to be released. But the very existence of the tape became a ticking time bomb that would eventually explode in public. By 2007, Hogan Knows Best was canceled, with reasons tied to the family's personal struggles and the negative attention surrounding the divorce. What was once designed to showcase the Hogan family's charm instead turned into a warning about how quickly fame can collapse when private choices do not match public expectations. The professional damage came fast, but the personal destruction would prove far more lasting. The sex tape scandal and the financial ruin that followed unfolded like a crime thriller, with theft, extortion plots, and even FBI involvement, as Bubba later described in disturbing detail.
An employee stole it, and the rest is history. That employee disseminated it. The employee used it to try to extort Hogan for $1 million. There was an FBI. Did you know that there was an FBI sting?
The scandal grew even more complicated when the details of the scheme were revealed. Bubba explained how the stolen tape was circulated around Hollywood through middlemen, with even his own employee trying to make money from Hogan's most vulnerable moment.
Got a hold of his wife's best friend, who named Lori Burbage, who worked at the Bank of America. She was just making like 20, like a single mom, and gave her $1,000 to be the liaison.
When the tape finally went public in 2012, Gawker Media released a 2-minute clip that included 10 seconds of explicit content, running it under the headline, "Even for a minute, watching Hulk Hogan have sex in a canopy bed is not safe for work, but watch it anyway." The release of this private footage without Hogan's consent sparked a legal war that would reshape the rules of online privacy and celebrity journalism. But the scandal was not only about the sexual content, as the recording also caught racist remarks that damaged Hogan's reputation even more than the infidelity itself. These words, spoken in what he believed were private moments, revealed a side of him that clashed with his image as an all-American hero. The fallout was enormous, with his ex-wife Linda saying she felt ashamed but not surprised, explaining that while she was humiliated as the mother of his children, she believed it matched his character. Heather Clem, who found herself at the center of the media storm, suffered greatly as well. Her testimony during the trial exposed the manipulative control Bubba had over her and the troubling circumstances that led to the encounter with Hogan. When asked about Bubba's character, Heather's answer spoke volumes about the toxic nature of their relationship.
Fun, funny, giving, loving. He can be equally manipulative, selfish, intimidating, and hurtful.
The revelation that Bubba had installed cameras in his bedroom, claiming it was to protect valuables, added another layer of pre-planned intent to the entire situation. As Heather testified, the explanation only highlighted how deliberate and disturbing the setup truly was.
Bubba had told me that his attorney said it might be a good idea to have a camera in case something ever happened.
This explanation appeared suspicious in light of what later unfolded, raising doubts about whether the recording was ever accidental at all. The legal consequences of the scandal were unlike anything seen before. Hogan filed a lawsuit against Gawker Media for invasion of privacy, violation of his personality rights, and emotional distress, demanding $100 million in damages. In 2016, a Florida jury awarded him $115 million in compensatory damages and another $25 million in punitive damages, though the case later settled for $31 million, which played a major role in Gawker declaring bankruptcy. The lawsuit gained extra attention because it was secretly funded by billionaire Peter Thiel, who had his own grudge against Gawker after they exposed his sexuality in 2007. Yet even with this massive legal victory, Hogan paid a heavy personal price. Linda Hogan's reaction to her ex-husband's settlement showed just how deep her disgust ran as she shared her revulsion in a harsh and unfiltered interview.
sleep at night knowing that he's got the money for doing what he did
Do you think
to get that money in a roundabout way.
Do you look at it as blood money?
I do. It's like, it's dirty money. It's kind of representing saying to the public that he's being rewarded for bad behavior.
The financial devastation for Hogan stretched far beyond the legal battles. His divorce from Linda was finalized in July 2009, leaving her with more than 70% of the couple's liquid assets, 40% ownership of his companies, and a $3 million property settlement. Hogan was left with about $10 million, a sharp fall from the fortune he had once built, but the loss of money was nothing compared to the personal damage that followed. The emotional weight on Hogan was crushing, and in his memoir, he admitted to thinking about suicide after the divorce, crediting his American Gladiators co-star Layla Ali for helping him through that dark time. This confession showed how completely his infidelity had not only destroyed his family, but also broken down his sense of self-worth and purpose. Perhaps the most tragic outcome of Hogan's actions was the collapse of his relationship with his children, especially Brooke. By March 2025, Brooke confirmed that she was estranged from both parents, citing years of verbal and emotional abuse during her childhood. She explained that the reasons for cutting ties with her father and mother were separate, but the roots of this separation clearly began during the turbulent period of Hogan's affairs and divorce. The very public nature of these family struggles continued to follow Hogan well into his later years. Linda also admitted to being estranged from Brooke, blaming it on the fallout of Hogan's actions. And in a March 2025 Instagram video, she said, "It's been 15 years since I left Hulk Hogan, and my family is the worst mess." This public acknowledgement of family dysfunction was a stark reminder that the consequences of Hogan's infidelity were not short-term scandals, but lasting wounds that reshaped the lives of everyone involved. The professional damage he suffered was just as severe. The mix of personal scandals, especially the racist remarks caught on the sex tape, led WWE to terminate Hogan's contract and even remove him from their Hall of Fame in 2015, marking one of the most dramatic downfalls in entertainment history. The wrestling industry, known for celebrating larger-than-life characters, had tolerated many of Hogan's controversies because of his star power, but the betrayals and public backlash stripped away his image as a universal hero. Hogan tried to shape the story in his favor, but his efforts fell flat against the growing evidence. While in his 2009 autobiography, My Life Outside the Ring, he denied having an affair with Christiane Plant and rejected other cheating claims, insisting that Linda often accused him unfairly whenever he was friendly with another woman. By painting her as jealous and paranoid, he attempted to shift the blame away from his own actions. But the fallout did not stop there. The damage carried over into his later relationships, showing how the same pattern of infidelity continued to corrode his personal life. His second marriage to Jennifer McDaniel lasted 11 years, but ended in 2021, with the shadow of his scandals likely playing a role in the split. When he announced their divorce in February 2022, alongside news of his new relationship with Sky Daily, fans were left confused and critical of the timing. Even his final marriage to Sky Daily, which began in 2023, was clouded by the history of infidelity and the painful estrangement from his children. Brooke Hogan did not attend her father's wedding to Sky Daily, explaining that she needed healing and happiness by keeping her distance from her family. Her absence from what should have been a joyful celebration was a powerful reminder of the permanent damage Hogan's past actions had caused in his closest relationships. But the reasons the wrestling world turned on their former hero went beyond his family scandals. While his infidelity destroyed his personal life, it was only part of a bigger picture that explained why so many wrestlers grew to despise him. The wrestling business is built on respect, loyalty, and an unspoken rule of looking out for one another. Yet for decades, many in the industry believed Hogan had broken these values with his backstage politics, racist remarks, and self-centered behavior that put his interests above the good of the business. The root of this resentment came from his notorious use of backstage power and creative control. As the biggest star of his era, Hogan often influenced storylines and match outcomes, especially in WWE and WCW, where his contracts gave him the right to veto decisions that did not fit his vision for his character. This power was often used to secure his spot at the top, but it came at the cost of other wrestlers' opportunities and careers.
We did a nitro in Buffalo, and I knew who I had to wrestle, per se, but 10 minutes before the shows go on air, 10 to 8, I didn't know if it was going to happen or not. We had to wait till Hogan got to the building and say, clear it. Yeah, you can do what they have written down.
Bret Hart, one of wrestling's most respected technical performers, claimed that Hogan refused to lose the WWE Championship to him in 1993, instead choosing to drop the belt to Yokozuna in an overbooked finish that stalled Hart's momentum. Hart said Hogan promised he would put him over later, but that moment never came, leaving years of resentment. Hart openly criticized Hogan, calling him a 1 out of 3 wrestler who lacked real technical skill and leaned entirely on his larger-than-life persona. Shawn Michaels also had his own issues with Hogan, particularly at SummerSlam 2005, where a planned best-of-3 series was changed at the last moment. Hogan insisted on winning their only match, despite being a part-time performer, which frustrated Michaels so much that he comically oversold Hogan's moves during the bout, creating one of the most passive-aggressive performances in wrestling history. Perhaps the most infamous example of Hogan's backstage politics came at WCW's Starrcade, 1997, in his showdown with Sting. The match had been built for over a year as the moment Sting would beat Hogan cleanly to become the face of the company, but Hogan reportedly used his creative control to change the finish. The result was a confusing sequence involving a fast count and a restart, which badly damaged Sting's win and disappointed fans expecting a decisive outcome. Beyond these high-profile disputes, Hogan also developed a reputation for mistreating wrestlers he considered beneath his level of fame. Hogan also publicly buried Billy Kidman during his WCW run, mocking him in interviews by saying Kidman couldn't draw flies at a flea market. At the time, Kidman was being built as a rising star, but Hogan's comments damaged his push and left Kidman bitter, showing a pattern of Hogan using his influence to hold others back when it benefited him. Perhaps the most damaging revelation about Hogan's character, however, came from his role in blocking unionization efforts in the 1980s. Jesse Ventura had tried to organize wrestlers to gain benefits like health insurance and better working conditions, since they were treated as independent contractors without protections. Hogan, who was a close friend of Ventura, allegedly informed Vince McMahon about the plan, allowing McMahon to shut it down. Ventura only discovered Hogan's betrayal years later during a federal deposition, a revelation that devastated him and others who had supported the cause. Many wrestlers believed a union could have improved the business, providing health care and financial security that might have saved careers and even lives. Hogan's decision to put his own interests above solidarity cemented his image as selfish, earning him long-lasting enemies among his peers. Then came the racism scandal of 2015, which delivered another crushing blow to his reputation. In leaked audio from the 2007 sex tape, Hogan was heard using the N-word several times and expressing anger over his daughter Brooke dating a black man, even admitting that he was racist to a degree. WWE responded by cutting ties with him and removing him from the Hall of Fame in 2015, although he was reinstated 3 years later after issuing a public apology.
Funny that, we were talking about this last night, that, with all the podcasts and all the books and everything, and everybody realizes that Hogan wasn't the guy that he was portrayed to be, And I'm not asking you to put yourself in a tight spot here or anything, but I mean, he's not
from a fan's perspective. We grew up seeing Hogan as this great thing,
bigger in life Americana kind of deal, and then obviously, he gets caught on tape, saying some derogatory, racist things, and in this day and age where all of that is such a hot button deal. Like, I don't know what you expect.
Black wrestlers such as MVP openly called Hogan a racist, pointing to the leaked audio as proof and saying they had no respect for him. Mark Henry, who had once tried to help Hogan repair his image, admitted he was deeply disappointed, explaining that Hogan's lack of true remorse only made the pain worse. Beyond the racism scandal, Hogan's long history of lying and exaggerating added to the frustration of wrestlers who valued honesty. His claims ranged from saying he was scouted by Major League Baseball teams like the Yankees and Reds, to insisting he had been offered the lead role in The Wrestler by director Darren Aronofsky. These false stories, piled on top of his scandals, created a toxic legacy that eroded trust and poisoned his standing in the industry. Wrestlers across different generations felt the impact, with Scott Steiner even blaming Hogan for his reduced role in TNA and accusing him of trying to destroy the company.
He's a motherfucker. There's no other way you can say it. He's a piece of shit.
The Iron Sheik felt abandoned by Hogan after their famous 1984 match, accusing him of lying about the true nature of their relationship. Chris Benoit also voiced his dislike for Hogan, criticizing his political games in WCW and pointing out how Hogan often ignored lower card wrestlers, walking past them without so much as a greeting. By the time Hogan made his final WWE appearance in January 2025, the reaction from the fans said it all. A clear reflection of how far his status had fallen from once being wrestling's ultimate hero.
There's a reason why he got booed in California. All this stuff that came out with him. So I think a lot of people realize, the perception that WWE or WCW wanted of Hulk Hogan was not really him.
This shift in fan perception marked a turning point in how wrestling audiences viewed their once beloved hero. In 2025, the Sportster noted that while the general public disliked Hogan for his real-life scandals, wrestling fans had grown tired of him entirely, showing how his reputation had been permanently damaged. Even in death, the consequence of Hogan's infidelity and destructive behavior continued to overshadow his career. When he passed away on July the 24th, 2025, at age 71 from cardiac arrest, WWE, AEW, and NJPW all issued tributes. But his scandals quickly resurfaced in public discussion. On July 28, 2025, Linda offered an emotional reflection saying, "I loved Hulkster more than he loved me. It hurt when he cheated, but he was so famous." Her words captured the tragic irony of Hogan's life. The fame and success that should have brought him fulfillment instead became the excuse for actions that destroyed the relationships that should have mattered most. His habit of using celebrity status as a shield for his misconduct ultimately cost him everything that fame was meant to protect and preserve. The true tragedy of Hulk Hogan's story lies in how unnecessary his downfall was. Unlike many celebrity scandals that are sparked by outside forces or unavoidable conflict, every part of Hogan's collapse was the result of his own decisions. Each affair, each betrayal, and each lie that came to light was a choice he made despite having everything most people could ever dream of: fame, fortune, a loving family, and the admiration of millions of fans. When looking back on his legacy, what emerges is the portrait of a man who systematically destroyed every meaningful relationship in his life through a toxic mix of infidelity, backstage politics, and personal betrayals. His affairs did more than end marriages. They tore apart family bonds, ruined professional partnerships, and broke the trust of an industry that once celebrated him as its greatest star and ambassador. The infidelity scandal became the perfect symbol of Hogan's larger flaws. Just as he betrayed his wife and daughter by sleeping with Brooke's best friend, he betrayed his fellow wrestlers by undermining union efforts, refusing to elevate deserving talent, and using his political power to protect his own spot at the expense of everyone else. The pattern was always the same. Hogan chose short-term gratification and self-preservation over loyalty, integrity, and lasting relationships. The tragedy of his story is that it never needed to end this way. He had all the tools for a truly legendary legacy: talent, charisma, business sense, and the love of millions of fans around the world. Yet his inability to control his personal impulses and his willingness to betray those closest to him overshadowed everything he achieved in the ring. The wrestling world's final judgment on Hulk Hogan was reflected in the mixed reactions to his death and the complicated tributes that followed. His contributions to wrestling history are undeniable, but so too is the destruction he left behind in his personal and professional life. His infidelity was never just a private matter. It became the ultimate symbol of the gap between the hero fans saw and the deeply flawed man behind the mask. In the end, Hulk Hogan's affairs did not just break marriages, they may have destroyed the very legacy he spent his career trying to build. Thank you for watching this video, and if you want to see another story like this, click one of the boxes on your screen now.